the Sage's Cabin. I'm your host, Rox Madeira. What I'm really interested in exploring is our ancestral connection with the earth and the plants, connecting with our wise women ancestors and our inherent magic and feminine wisdom. I'm also really interested in the history of women's health care, women's roles in society, and the history of herbal medicine. But what I'm also really interested in is herbalism as a political tool and how it can help society at large to deal with major issues that we have, like our well-being and our stress and trauma. And I'm interested in reclaiming our connection to the plants and to the earth. So within the Sage's Cabin, we chat with wisdom keepers of herbal medicine and food and gardening, well-being, and also social justice movements. If you enjoy the podcast, please support it by becoming a patron. Your support really helps the podcast to be recorded, edited, and posted. If you also enjoy the podcast, please like and share. So grab a cup of tea and come and join me in the Sage's Cabin. So today's podcast is a bit of a very short history of Western herbal medicine and its kind of influence on how it kind of took power away from the wise women. And this is something that I kind of looking into and exploring as part of my Wise Herbal Ways Weaving the Feminine Patron. So if you're interested, you can have a look at that, and obviously I'll be sharing bits and more pieces through the podcast every now and again. Western medicine traces its roots back to Galen, Hippocrates and others, and their use of the humoral philosophy. Interestingly, this is where medicine also traces its roots. These very men and ideas, however, are what eventually displaced the original traditional women herbalist, healers and shaman, who had been healing their communities since the human species began. The wise woman tradition was passed down orally through stories, experiences and apprentices, so much of it is now lost to the mists of time. In contrast, the great fathers of medicine wrote down their theories and experiments and taught them to the male physicians, so we have records of their way of healing and medicine. These became studied and expanded upon to eventually become our system of medicine. Much of the basis of this healing, the use of plants, minerals, and animals, was based on the earlier knowledge of the herbal wise women, and then amended and rewoven via the masculine view of the world. Hence the idea of the wandering womb, which I have a previous post about. As the fathers of medicine developed their theories, they established universities that excluded women and taught their ideas to the new emerging male physicians. For a long time, the wise women continued to work in their communities as physicians were very expensive. The great Western tradition of herbalists that we know and draw from today are from the books of the 16th and 17th centuries, and just about all are written by men. Remnants and fragments of the old folk tradition still exist and still gets passed down, but is often just dismissed and thought of as old-time country folklore, not something that's scientific and that can be used in this day and age. During the 18th and 19th centuries, we saw these male physicians eventually split into two paths, the doctors and the herbalists that we know today. As doctors started to incorporate more chemicals like arsenic, mercury and sulfur and bloodletting into their treatments, and pharmacology developed as a discipline to try and understand the impact of drugs on the body, and they sought to discredit the herbalists like they had the wise woman previously. However, the emergence of the new herbalists had a fairly anti-physician ideology themselves. But they also claimed that the wise women, grandfathers and previous herbalists like Culpeper distributed their herbs without any rhyme or reason. They now pushed for herbalism to be considered a science. This revival, however, saw herbalism move even more to the authority of men, pushing women out once again. And this move into the capitalist realms also meant that although one half of the aim was to popularize and simplify herbal medicine so that people could buy books and make remedies at home, the other aim was to develop herbal shops where people could buy ingredients rather than the age-old tradition of harvesting plants themselves, which again was discredited. Eventually, laws put the final nail in the coffin and stopped people who were not formally educated from being able to practice medicine. The wisdom of the wise women was dismissed as old wives' tales.